Hello everyone and welcome to your own tutor YouTube channel. So today we are going to talk about how I managed to score 8.0 in the IELTS exam. Now the purpose of this video is to not boast about my scores but to actually give you a fair idea about what to expect in the exam, what tips and tricks you can follow and how you can actually improve on your scores. Now I know there are many candidates out there who have a decent English, who have good command over the language. Their grammatical mechanics are sound, but they're still unable to score well, especially on the writing section of the IELTS exam. So this video, I hope it's going to really help you in terms of improving on your scores, what resources you should follow, and so on. So first of all, let me show you guys my scores. So these were the provisional results that I got, and these were not the final because you receive your final scores after you receive your final scores by post. And so these were my scores. In speaking, I scored 8.0, listening 8.5, reading 8.0, and writing 7.5. So overall, it was an 8.0 score. This was the academic IELTS. So, and this is how you would be actually receiving your score. Okay, so that's my name, and I've hidden out a few of my personal details. Okay, I took the test on 17th February of 2022. That's last year, so my scores are still valid. And as you can see, these are the scores written. So finally, you will receive the score in this format, and it is known as CEFR C1 level. I will tell you all about this in later videos. But this is how you will actually receive your test results, and this is known as the IELTS TRF. That is your test report form. Okay, it shows that it is academic IELTS, and these are the scores. So let's move on and get right into the heart of this video. Okay, let me just put it on the slideshow. Okay, so how to score 8.0 in the IELTS exam. Starting off with the tips for the listening section. Now you need to understand that no matter how good a speaker or how good a writer you are in the English language, you need to have all the four skills. That includes your reading skills, your writing skills, speaking skills, and the listening skills. Now, many people say that you need to watch Netflix or other English dramas to improve your listening, which could be a fact as well. But I will. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you some specific tips on how to improve your language. Okay, so the first thing is that when you go for the test, the first questions are going to be easy. Rather, first 10 or 15 questions are actually going to be really easy. You just need to follow the prompt. The English is very clear, it's not jumbled up. There are no like difficult sentences or complex sentences used in that. It's usually just a person going on a reception providing details, and you just need to note down the details. Now while noting down, you need to make sure that you use all the capital letters if you're attempting paper based IELTS. I haven't taken the computer based IELTS, so I don't really know much about that, but I would not comment on that either because I was comfortable with paper based IELTS, and that went well for me. So the only thing that I would want you guys to know here is that even if you miss out on a question, you think that I have missed out on the detail, I couldn't capture the detail, just move on and don't just get stuck on a question and getting confused about it, because you are going to miss the next few questions that are going to be in that sequence. IELTS tests also always follow a sequence, and that's where you can actually beat this. Okay, that's where you can actually come up with the strategies on how to deal with the test. And one of the strategies is that when you are taking the test, you have to be attentive. Be very attentive to the audio that is playing. Don't distract yourself with any thoughts during that. That's the only problem in the listening section, because you cannot control that section. In the reading section, you can actually go back and forth on the paragraphs. In the writing section, you can actually use the eraser to rub your answers, and But in the speaking section and in the listening section, you don't have much control over how the test goes, right? So you will be given a prompt in the speaking section and you will be having an audio in the listening section. So you need to be very attentive in these two sections. Okay, it gets difficult as the test progresses. So there are basically 40 questions in total, and in order to score like above 8, I think you need to score more than 36 correct. And it's very doable if you have decent English. If your basics are good, it's not that big a deal, and you can easily do it with just a bit of practice. It's divided into sections, I've already told you. Now, these are the types of questions that you should expect in the IELTS exam. These are blanks question, forms completion. Basically, they are going to provide they're going to tell you when the section starts, they're going to tell you that these questions are for 1 to question 5. This audio is for question 1 to 5, and then you can just focus and read those questions quickly in your head before the audio actually plays. This is very important, okay? So that you can actually anticipate what kind of question is going to come in your listening section. You need to be able to anticipate. Even if you anticipate, like for example, it says that the next audio is going to be for questions 34 to 40. Now there are 6 questions or 7 questions in this progress, okay? In a single go, you might have to complete like 8 questions, 10 questions even, for example, because in the end at the end of the test, they are going to give you like more questions in one section of the audio, and they're going to quickly talk, and you need to be able to follow that audio, all right? So when the audio is playing, for example, it says that from the next audio is from question 32 to 40. Now you should be able to at least read as many questions as you can before the audio actually plays, because there is a gap of like 2 to 3 or at least minimum of maybe 5 seconds that you can utilize. And those 5 seconds or 2 seconds are going to be crucial, because you should have a look at the questions. They actually do give you time to look at questions from this sequence to this sequence, so that you can actually anticipate the answers. And that's really, really important. That's the key tip that I want to give you guys, that when you are attempting the listening section, always try to read the questions first, so that you can anticipate what is going to come in the questions. So you will also find maps. I actually found these very difficult, because the maps questions are really tough, and I actually had to practice them a lot. So you would also need to practice them. Completing a list or a chart, they might give you a chart, and there might be some prompts that you need to fill in the details for, and you might actually get a list as well. So you need to complete the list. And one thing more, it's always going to follow a sequence. I've already mentioned this, but I cannot stress this enough. There's always going to be a sequence. So even if you miss out on a detail and you think that they are providing the next answer now, just continue your test with the next answer. Don't worry about the previous one. And at the end of the day, when you actually get 2 minutes to fill in your answers, just recall the details, as many as you can, and then write the anticipated answer. Okay, there's no need for you to be correct in all the 40 questions. It's ideal, but even if you miss out, we are all human beings and we cannot be 100% correct all the time, right? So even if you miss out on 1 or 2 questions, that's going to be fine, and you will end up scoring like 8.5 or 8 on the test. Okay, moving on, tips for the reading section. Now, in the reading section, what most students actually struggle with are the strategies to tackle the sections. Now, you will find like 3 passages, I believe, and in those 3 passages, 1 or 2 are going to be a bit easy. The last one is going to be a bit difficult. There are going to be different types of questions on those as well. Now, the confusing part is that some people say that you need to read the passage first. Now, first approach is reading the passage first and then looking at the questions. Now, what happens is that when you read the passage first, you actually are not clear about what you're looking for. So you might end up reading the entire passage, and without just forming mental notes or maybe taking the notes on with your pencil on the side of the paragraph if you're attempting the paper based version. I don't think that option is available in the computer based one. If you guys have any idea about the computer based test, then do share with others so that others can learn. Okay, so you take mental notes of each paragraph or even small notes on the pencil of each paragraph, and then you look at the questions and then come back to those details and answer the question. Now again, the answers are going to follow a sequence. The questions will be in a sequential manner, so the answers would be, for example, if the question is from the first paragraph, all the details would be following that first paragraph. It would not be like the question would be from the last paragraph directly. Okay, so they are going to follow a sequence, and this is very important because most people, when they see a long passage, they struggle with it because they don't know this tip that the IELTS exam always follows the sequence. And then the next strategy is to first look at the questions and then look for the answers. Now, this worked really well for me. I actually ended up saving a lot of time on, especially on my second reading passage. I did not even have to read the complete passage. Now, this might be controversial uh, for a lot of people out there, for a lot of teachers out there. I know they say that you need to have a thorough understanding of the passage. Your comprehension should be really good. That's how you can actually attempt the questions. But I will only share the tips that work well for me. You're free to choose both of these strategies. When you're practicing, you should actually try both of them. Okay, for example, when you're taking the first practice test, you should try reading the passage first and then looking at the questions, and then again when you take this next test, you just try the second strategy, looking at the questions first and then looking for the answers from the passage. Whichever strategy saves time for you, whichever strategy gives you the most correct answers, I think you should stick to that and keep on practicing with that strategy. But you need to be clear from the outset about which strategy you're going to follow, especially in your exams. Because on the test date, if you go with one strategy, if you have practiced one strategy and in the exam if you follow a different strategy, you're going to struggle. So you need to be clear from the start, from the beginning. And one more tip is reading is all about practice. You need to be a good reader. I would suggest if you have time, uh, do buy a few books. There's nothing else like reading books. I think if you are a good reader, you would be naturally you would do well on the reading section of the IELTS exam. Okay, this is pretty common. Okay, now look for keywords. This is another important tip. When you are looking at the questions, you can underline a few keywords, what details are they asking, and then look for those keywords in the passages. And as soon as you find that keyword, just underline it, and all the answers are going to follow that same pattern. So looking for keywords is very important. I will give you an example of it. We will actually cover it in a lot more detail when I make a section wise video of the IELTS exam, because I want to give you as much detail as possible so that you can actually ace your IELTS exam. Okay, be good at scanning. Now, some people say you just need to scan the paragraphs, look at the questions, and look for the details. That strategy is okay, but I think you need both. Sometimes you need in-depth reading of the paragraph because there are some details that are really hidden. Sometimes the questions are phrased in a way that it becomes difficult for people to actually understand what is being asked in the passage. So the detail would be like you would be seeing the same keywords, but the meaning of the question and what is being asked would be different than what is given in the passage. Sometimes the language would be technical, sometimes it would be jumbled up in a way to confuse you, and that is done deliberately. So you need an in-depth reading to understand the nuances, the small details in the language. Now coming on to the speaking section. Speaking section is first about introducing yourself. So there are two sections basically. They are going to give you a prompt and you will have 1 minute or a half minute. I think you need to prepare your answer and then you need to speak. This is also all about practice. Develop a flow in the language. When you're speaking, you need to have a flow in the language. Make sure you're not making grammatical mistakes when you're speaking. One tip that I would give you is that you need to start speaking a bit slow. Okay, don't just rush through your sentences.